Alrighty, this is Mrs. Whitaker, and I'm just wanting to elaborate a little bit on fractions since we started fractions today, and sometimes students can be a little nervous about fractions, but I'm hoping within the next week or two then that you will feel much better about fractions and you'll be able to do any operation you want to or need to, and you'll feel very comfortable in doing that because you're going to have a better understanding. To talk about fractions, which I would just lightly define as part of a whole, I brought out some measuring cups from home that I've got here. I actually have one whole, so that's not a fraction. It actually has a whole bunch of little fractions on it if I needed to use it, but this is going to represent one whole. I also have 1/2 of a cup, I've got 1/3 of a cup, and I have 1/4 of a cup. Now what I do want you to notice right off the bat is the sizes of them. Here's my smallest one, but my denominator is bigger. And as I get bigger in my cup size, my denominator is smaller. So what that means is 1/2 means 1 part out of 2. And 1/3 means 1 part out of 3. So 1 part out of 2 is going to be more than 1 part out of 3. And 1 part out of 4 is going to be less than all of these. So I want to make sure you understand how to see and picture different fractions. If the denominator is bigger and the numerators are the same, then it's going to be smaller. The denominator that's bigger is going to be smaller. So let's start with, if I'm cooking something, I'm going to need a cup of sugar. But let's say I don't have my cup. I lost it, or the dog ate it, or something like that, and all I have is a 1/2 cup. So how many 1/2 cups would it take to get that cup of sugar? Well, it would take 2 1/2 cups, or 2 halves, to make a whole. You can figure that one out. All right, what if I lost that one too? I didn't have that, and I just had the 1/3 of a cup. How many 1/3 of a cup does it take to make 1 cup? It takes 3 of these, or 3/3, to make a cup. And the same goes with the 1/4. The 1/4 of a cup, how many of those would it take to make 1 cup? I would need 4/4 to make 1 cup. So real quickly, I just want to write that out. 1 cup equals, well, let's see, I had 2 halves made a cup, 3/3 made a cup, 4/4 made a cup. Are you seeing a pattern here? 5/5 makes 1 whole, 6/6 makes 1 whole, 7/7 makes 1 whole. So if my numerator and denominator are the same, it's all 1 whole. So I want to make sure you understand that, because we're going to be dealing with different denominators, but I need you to always know where 1 whole is. All right, when we're estimating fractions, I'm going to put a couple of fractions up here. 4/5 plus 5/9. I want to estimate these so I can just give a quick answer and not do much math, maybe do it in my head, but I need to know where 4/5 is, and I need to know where 5/9 is. So when you're estimating, what I want you to do is picture a number line from 0 to 1, and then I want you to mark the halfway mark. That's easy to do. Just mark it halfway. Now, let's deal with our 4/5. Now, first of all, I need to figure out what's 1 whole when I'm talking about fifths. How many fifths are there in 1 whole? Well, I looked at that. I can just look up here what we just talked about. 5/5 in 1 whole. So, in this fraction, 5/5 is 1 whole. Where do you think 4/5 is going to be? Well, if I separated from 0 to 1 into fifths, here's my 5/5. My 4/5 is going to be around here. So if I'm going to estimate 4/5, and I'm going to say, well, is it closer to 0, 1/2, or 1? I'm going to say it's probably closer to 1 because it's really close to 5/5. So I'm going to change that to 1 in just estimating. Now let's look at the 5/9. How many ninths are there in 1 whole? Well, if I follow the rule that I looked at up here, it's going to be 9/9 is my whole. So where would 5/9 be? Well, let's see. I know half of 9 is 4.5. So 4.5 would be halfway. 5 is just going to be a little bit to the right, but it's really close. So I'm going to call that the halfway mark. So if I'm going to add these with rough estimates, I'm going to add 1 plus a half and get 1 1/2. All right, let's do another one. Let's do 7/8 minus 2/5. So let me write that down. Now I'm going to estimate these. Let's estimate using this number line. Now let's look at 7/8. Wow, that's almost 8/8. That's almost the whole thing because I know 1 whole is 8/8. So 7/8 is really close, so I'm going to say that's going to be 1. Now 2/5, not really sure. I do know that 5/5 is 1 whole. Half of 5 is 2 1/2, so 2 1/2 would be the halfway point, so 2 would be a little bit less. I'm going to say it's closer to a half than it is to 0. So I'm going to say 1 minus a half, and then that's going to be 1/2 for my answer. All right, let's do a little bit of multiplying. Let's say I've got 6 3/8, and these are bigger than 1 now, times 9 1/8. All right, 3/8. Let's just look at our fractions and go back up to our number line. If 8/8 are in 1 whole, 4/8 is at the halfway mark, 3 is going to be a little bit this way, so that's about a half. But you know what? I don't want to multiply half. So was it going to be closer to the 0 or the 1? Well, it's going to be closer to the 0. So I'm just going to disqualify that fraction, turn that into a 6. 1/8. Wow, 1 part out of 8. That's not very much. And that reminds me, let's look at 1/8 and what it looks like if I shade. So 1/8 means I'm going to have 8 parts here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I separate those into 8. And then I shade one of those. Does that look like very much? That doesn't look like very much at all. So it's really close to 0 on the number line. It's really not very much here. So I'm just going to get rid of it here and just say 6 times 9 equals 54. That's how I would solve that. Let's do some division. Let's see. Let me use the problem. Let's do 39 4/5 divided by 7 9/10. All right, so here's my problem, and I'm going to estimate here. Now remember, this is division, so I might want to use some numbers that are compatible, numbers that go together. So 39 4/5. Wow, 4/5. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so out of 5, I've got 4 shaded. That's a lot. That's almost the whole thing. So I'm going to change this to 40. And I'm going to say divided by, I don't even want to divide by 7. That's not very easy. But 9/10. I'm lucky. I can draw that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I divide that into tenths and shade 9 of them, wow, that's almost the whole thing. So that's pretty substantial. That's almost another 1. So I'm going to add that with the 7 and say that's 8. And luckily, 40 divided by 8 I can do. That's going to be 5. Now, even if it was like 3/10 or 4/10, and it might fall in the halfway range, I think I'm going to go ahead and make that an 8 because it's compatible with the 40. So remember, estimation means make it easy for me so I can do it in my head, because we do it in our head at the store. We don't get out a piece of paper or the calculators and do math. We're just going to do it in our head. So really knowing how to round, knowing how to estimate fractions and where it is on the number line or what it is on a fraction bar and seeing how much it is of the whole, it helps us understand how much that fraction is. What is it worth? And it allows us to do some really good estimations, really quick estimations, and still be around in the right ballpark. So hopefully that helps you with 3-7. Completing that homework. Please email if you have any questions.